Two things will kill you in a restaurant business: rent and labor. If one of those is out of balance, you're done.
2011 to 2018, taking some L's, taking some losses. What would you tell that person who's maybe in that season right there?
Don't discount. Don't cheapen what you do.
Opened 3 restaurants now, but then the next 2 are acquisitions. Would you recommend that? Do you like building it better from the ground up?
I mean, Table Mesa, it annoyed me when the other taco place opened up. And then you had a tequila Mexican joint. That annoyed me. But I forgot the reason why I was here. Those are distractions. We just had to focus within our 4 walls. You could do social media and go, come on out and show them great pictures. Forget about that. Word of mouth, that's the best advertising. It'll never fail.
Why build a business in Northwest Arkansas?
Well, Northwest Arkansas is...
We want to give a special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Greenwood Gerhardt. Starting with my parents, for years, they've helped my family feel at peace by having a team we can trust build our finances for the future. One thing I love about Greenwood Gerhardt is how directly involved the team is in the holistic planning of our finances. We can regularly check in with our advisor and know that they see the full picture of our family, even between generations. I know they're adding immense value to so many lives here in Northwest Arkansas. And to learn more about Greenwood Gerhardt and their suite of services, you can visit their website at greenwoodgerhardt.com or hit the link in the show description. Now, let's dive into the episode. Carl, thanks so much for coming on this morning. Carl Garrett with Table Restaurant Group.
Yes, sir.
And so before we get rolling, how many restaurants do y'all have now?
8. Well, actually, we're 10 on paper, 7 that are active operating. The 8th one, we're not sure who's going to be number 8. We're doing one simultaneously in Jacksonville, Florida, which is a Tavola, Italian style restaurant.
Some people say Tavola, but it's actually Tavola.
Yes, sir.
So we get it
Yes,
right.
Sir. Yeah, that's the way. Everybody like, but Tavola is how we pronounce it. And then we have Table at the Center, which will be on the new Walmart campus. So they're both vying for about January, February, to open.
Yeah.
So we think at this point in time, Jacksonville's building is far more ahead and than the one at the Walmart campus. So
tell us, what's the most challenging part kind of today of being an owner of a restaurant group? Like, there's very few people here in Northwest Arkansas that are like, they kind of have that scale. Like, what is the biggest pain point kind of managing all of this right now?
I think the biggest challenge for us, it will always be people. I think people will bring a great resource. You have to have them. And so I think that we have to get folks that are grounded, that have goals, have values, want to do the right thing. It's more important, I think, than the IQ, how smart you are, or how many restaurants you worked at. Whereas we prefer people who have a high hospitality quotient of thinking, wanting to serve. And I think that's the toughest thing that we run into is the heart of the servant,
Wow.
That would be and from the top down.
Finding those people.
Yeah, finding them and hoping that mom and dad did a great job with them, and that's where it begins in the family at home. And then you come in and then we can, because, when you get a job, the nurturing kind of stops because now you're getting paid to do something to make that person's business better. So whether you're working in a restaurant or you're in construction or, real estate or something, that person, whoever you bring on, has to better your business because you're paying them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's a bit of a challenge, I think, because, you get nurtured at home, right? You get nurtured at school. College, I think you might be on your own as you guys can testify. I don't think you got about an hour in a class or something, and then you got to do a lot of study on your own and you hope to get a great grade, right? So, and work is kind of like that too. So, but sometimes people need more nurturing and that may be okay in some cases, especially if you're hiring some teenagers. We try to go maybe 16 to 18 on the low range where we can train them to bus tables and work at our front desk and and just kind of learn the ropes, you know. So, and then we can help develop them, and hopefully, help in the community with some good life skills as well.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing. So talk about, so y'all moved here, you and your wife moved here from Seattle,
correct.
and 2008, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And why Bentonville? What was the big reason? And you moved here to start Table Mesa, correct?
Yeah. Why Bentonville? I could give you the short answer. It was a spiritual journey and give you this pontifical stuff, and some people may get that and some people won't. I think it really goes further back. Yes, my wife, one time we were talking about, because we had a partner in Seattle. We had a very high volume restaurant in downtown Seattle, but we wanted to totally be out on our own, And so my wife just came across something. She saw something that said Rogers, a fast growing area or something like that. But she didn't know where it was. She didn't catch the state or anything like that. And then she actually had a dream about it. She said, "Man, I think we're supposed to go to a place," because we were looking for areas. And when she said, "Well, I think it's this area called Rogers," and I thought for a moment, Rogers, scanning around Seattle, I couldn't find a Rogers. I mean, there's Bellevue, there's Redmond, and stuff like that, but there was no Rogers. And then I went as far south as Portland, see if there's a Rogers in the Portland area, because we were willing to do that, but no such thing. And then a few weeks later, I'm driving home, and it hit me that I did know Rogers. And I think I mentioned to you that I opened Cozy Mel's Mexican restaurant in Little Rock.
Yep.
And I met a guy. He asked me how I like Little Rock. I said, it's okay. And he goes, yeah, it's tough here. And I said, well, where do you live? And he says, well, I live in Rogers, Arkansas. He says, I live in God's country. That's exactly what he said. And I said, oh, really? Well, I have to go check that out, and that was the end of the conversation. So that was 1993. Fast forward to early 2008, late 2007, somewhere in that range, it dawned on me. Isn't that funny how we can remember things like that? So that kind of started it. My partner opened a couple of restaurants in the Denver area. I went out there to help him, and United happens to have a direct flight from Denver to XNA. So I thought, I'm going to go check this Rogers place out. So I took a flight over, drove around the area, had a commercial real estate guy show me everywhere around here, but the square. And so the last day that I was here, I went out on my own just to investigate the market.
Yeah.
And I was going down, headed north on Walton, saw Central. Central's like Main Street, right?
Yeah.
So it got to be good stuff down there. So I took a right, and I came across this charming historic square. And I called the real estate guy, and I said, hey, how come you didn't tell me about this historic square? He goes, you don't want to be down there. You'll go bankrupt. So I thought, wow, but who wouldn't want to be in a little historic town and have a little bistro and just enjoy life, no major traffic anymore with 4 million people and all that stuff. And so that's kind of how it went. And then it just started to connect more after that.
And was there, so 2008, was there a restaurant where Table Mesa is right now?
No, that was an office supply. Matter of fact, that place had no infrastructure for a restaurant. How it's a restaurant to this day is miraculous. I don't know, but there was no place for a grease trap, no place for a hood.
Wow.
I mean, it was just, a crawl space. You're always repairing floor joists in that restaurant.
Yeah.
And there's always a lot of work. It's kind of like that movie, The Money Pit. It's kind of like that. It's a great location. I would say on the real estate, if you're great in it, I'd give it an A+. But on the trade-off, you got to do a lot of fix it up.
Oh yeah. So we'll talk about, getting into that space. When did you know, hey, this was you saw that, hey, this like charming square. Obviously there wasn't all these super nice houses around there at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe a few. I don't know.
Yeah, down Central you had a few.
Yeah. But talk about, okay, this is the site, and then building it out, choosing what the concept was going to be. Did you know kind of leading up to it based off of, because you worked in restaurants pretty much your hospitality
all my life.
all your life.
Yeah. So how do we know? The question is, how do we know to pick that spot?
Yeah.
Sure. So, like I said, on my last day of the journey, I was walking around and I went over to this little coffee shop. I think it's called Java Coffee or something. And they were jackhammering the sidewalks up. They're always, even back then, they were doing construction, right? And I went in to the coffee shop and said, man, you must like being in this really small town. Isn't this, how's business? And he goes, it was like he talking to Eeyore. He said, no, it's not good. It's bad. They're tearing up, nobody's coming down here. And then I noticed there's Jones Soda. I don't know if you know anything about Jones Soda. That originated out of Seattle. He had a whole cooler of Jones Soda. And I took that as a indicator for some reason. I don't know why. I said, you know that Jones Soda, where that's from? He said, no, I don't. I said, it's from Seattle. You guys got a Seattle product. Big deal, right? So then, like I said, I made that phone call to the commercial real estate guy, and that's what he told me. You don't want to be down there. That's be a bad move for you. Then I thought to myself, if my wife likes this, because she doesn't like change, if I get her down here and she sees this and she feels the way I do, it's a done deal. So I came back a few weeks later with my wife. I showed her where the commercial real estate guy showed us. Wasn't impressed, and she really loved the square. So I saw a sign flapping in the breeze. It was, it was supposed to be a banner nicely tacked, but no, it just broke loose. And so I was looking for the phone number on it, and I called the guy, and it was an answering service or machine, and it said, leave a message, and I thought, well, I'm not going to call that guy. That seems grumpy, or he's like an angry guy. We'll keep looking around. And my wife said, well, aren't you going to call him back? I said, nah, he sounds like a grump. Well, I'm going to call this guy. And something in me said, call him again. Just like that, like almost like a voice. Get up and call him. Pretty direct. That may sound spooky, but that's how it was. So I call him, real nice voice answered, hello, how are you? Said, hey, I did leave a message on your machine. He goes, oh, yeah, I live in Missouri, but I can give me 45 minutes. I can be down there and I can show you the place. So he comes down in a pickup truck, overalls, cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And I thought, interesting. And I thought, well, let's don't judge, because you never know these guys. It could be like Jed Clampett, right? He owns, probably the whole town. You never know. So he shows us around, and very, very smart business guy. Things aren't always as they appear or as they sound, right? So we got a nice conversation, and we started getting excited. We could, nice little bistro. It'd be like one of these little, like in New York and, someplace in Greenwich Village. It kind of gave you that feel, And then it dawned on me, oh, what do you got for amperage? You need power and gas. And he goes, well, there's a little skinny gas line was through there. And he said, we got about 60, maybe 80 amps. And I said, well, we need about 400, 600. Oh, no, we can't do that because the city passed an ordinance. All the utility grounds got to be underground. So all the utilities are underground. So unless you want to jackhammer and tear up the roads and the sidewalk, go for it. I said, no, we can't do that. At that moment, when he said that, the mayor of Bentonville was walking by. His name was Bob McCaslin. And he, impeccably dressed, like he had a carnation, like typical small town, mayor. Yeah. And he says, hey, David, how you doing? David Scoggins owned the building. And he said, good, Mr. Mayor. So these folks here are from Seattle, and they want to open up a restaurant. But they can't open up a restaurant here because you guys got all these utilities underground, and we can't be tearing up the sidewalk. He goes, hold on, David, hold on. Let me make a phone call. So he whips out his cell phone, makes a call to the utility company. Within 3 minutes, he gets an answer. And he says, David, there's a big telephone pole in the back alley that has 3-phase power. They can get all the amps. They can just hook up to their panel, get all they want. Wow. Done. Wow. Right on cue, that mayor can. So we made a handshake deal. And I said, wow, just like that. No lawyers, nothing like that. Well, later we had to have a lawyer to finalize these, but that's how we did. We made our deal, got on the plane. And then I was thinking, how in the heck am I going to figure out a kitchen and a bar?
Yeah.
Because it was one storefront. So if you look at Table Mesa, so when you go to the main entrance where the awning is, that space to the left, that was the one storefront, 1,600 square feet, maybe a little bit more. That was it.
Wow.
So how do you make money, with that, when how many seats and how many, table turns? And by the way, after 5 o'clock, nobody is on the square. Might do a little bit of lunch trade with the court and, and I don't know, maybe prisoners. I don't know, but you get a little bit of daytime business.
And were there any other restaurants downtown at the time?
I think there was the Station Cafe. Yes, there was the Station Cafe.
Okay.
He is the first guy, actually. He had a little cafe over there. His name was Cecil. Nice guy. And, but, you know, we were on the plane. I guess we probably were back home in Seattle, maybe a day. And he calls me and he says, hey, Mr. Garrett, the people next door just went up and left and didn't pay the rent. Do you want that space? And I said, yeah, that's all kitchen and bar like that.
Wow.
So that's how that happened. So everything came in, you know, in order, if you will. And I'll tell you something, being a developer, you would appreciate this, that we moved here on August 8, 2008, and Table Mesa opened its doors October 16th of 2008.
Wow.
It's a couple of months.
Wow.
No info. I don't ask me how to explain that. I'd love to be able to spin you a story on how that came about, but it is what it is. And it came about, and then gradually, now, you know, it's been a process. You know, when I feel like when God opens doors for you, it's still a process.
Yeah.
Still a process.
And about the process. So talk about, I mean, did your previous experience managing restaurants, being like in all the different parts of the hospitality business, did you know how to manage the build out, how to hire, you know, do like manage cost of goods and all like, or was Table Mesa kind of the first one? Hey, we're figuring this out.
No, you know, having worked for corporate America and I've worked for Gilbert Robinson, which owned all the Houlihan's. So it taught me business, you know, and working for Houston's restaurant taught me operations, and working for Brinker International taught me how a publicly held company is run, very bottom line oriented. And so I knew how to open restaurants, so they put me on opening restaurant team. So I could open a restaurant, hire the staff, do all of that. I didn't really get my real training until Seattle, till my partner Jack gave me the opportunity to change a tired concept that I ran back in the mid to late 90s, to change the concept. So it was a restaurant in downtown Seattle called Desert Fire. We switched it over to and rebranded it to Mexico Cantina. Now, the reason why we did that, because Desert Fire was a Southwestern restaurant. Nobody really understood what Southwestern restaurants were. You know, we had a little bit of California, you know, cuisine and Tex-Mex, all hodgepodge. You know, so I had to explain. When we put Mexico up there, well, that fixed that. They knew what kind of restaurant that was, right? So, but I got to hire the architect. I interviewed several architects, builders, and I was practically the GC on that job. So that's where I got my real training from that regard to, you know, dealing with subs and budgeting and all of that. So operations I had, but I lacked, but I got that training in Seattle, and that helped me. And I'm still learning, you know, so.
And what would you tell someone who's like thinking about opening their first concept? I mean, I guess even here in Northwest Arkansas, it's like, you know, can we handle more restaurants here? But just like really like that first time business, like maybe they've worked in the kitchen of a restaurant, maybe they've worked front of house. What would you tell them? First concept, like, do you recommend it? Do you not?
Yeah, I think everything's worth, if it's burning in you to do it, you'll never know. Listen, we're all on the planet, you know, whatever, 70, 80, 90, 100, you make it 100 years old. You know, when you expire, and you know, because we're never going to get off the planet alive, are we? I don't think, you know, maybe, but, you know, there's no planning when you're dead. There's no creativity. There's nothing. I know it sounds a little morbid in a sense, but do it now. If you got it and you have that entrepreneurial spirit, do it. You don't have to go broke and be stupid about it and take on a bunch of debt. I would not recommend anybody to go. I would recommend people to save as much as they can and get into a place that you can afford. And if you need to partner up with somebody, fine, but don't take on something so big. Now you get lucky. I've seen lucky people do something and become successful, but they're few and far between. That's an anomaly. But I think that if you have that burning desire, get into something. If it's a food truck, if it's a 1,000 square foot deal, you and your wife got to work it out and go for it. Go for it,
So talk about that. Talk about inception. Do you remember, how much rent was, or what your what capital requirements there were for you to start in that space?
Was this, you're talking about Table Mesa, right? Yeah.
So you get out of your partnership in Seattle.
Yep. So we made a little money
Okay.
there because I was a minority partner,
Okay.
very minority. But it was a blessing for me to be part of that. And we saved our money. We drove the same cars. As a matter of fact, the car I was driving was probably 18 years old. Mercedes 300E. It's bulletproof. You can get a hold of one, keep it, or if you have it, keep it. But we both, my wife had a 98, I think, little BMW. Nice luxury cars, but old. But we, you don't have any payments on those things, right? So we saved our money. And so we basically, were underwriting the whole project at Table Mesa. So I think we had a little loan. I don't even remember what it was. It wasn't much, maybe $8,000-9,000. That was about it. And we had some credit cards. We had to be careful to use. But we didn't have a lot of credit line limit on those things, come to think of it. But so that helped you. So you had to use every little resource that you had to be able to do that. And so the rent was affordable because the owner had very little resources for tenant improvement. So I had to do the fixing up, and he gave me the economic rent at the time. So we had a good rent deal, but I had to fix the place up. And so that was a trade-off. So if you're willing to do that and you've got some handyman skills, or you've got some friends or whatever that can help you do this, then do that. But I think that's worth the risk. I'd do it all over again, but we spent every last cent we had to do Table. And I'm not kidding you. We had to lift up a prayer to make payroll. There was a few times where there was a freeze that came in. If I remember, I think it was in 2008 still, late December, and shut us down for 3 days. We weren't expecting that, So it was an ice storm. I know you can, maybe you remember. It was
spring of 09. Yeah, like maybe January.
It was bad. It was bad.
Yes.
So we were down for 3.5, 4 days, and stuck at the house. Wow. Couldn't even get on the road. And so that was tough. And we had a handful of employees. But I had to be chef, I had to be manager, I had to be GM. My wife was in the medical world. She worked for a dermatologist, so she had to learn the art of front of the house. But she's pretty savvy, so she caught on to it. So it's doable. You can do this.
That's cool. So you spend all the money you have, you open up Table Mesa, you move from Seattle to Bentonville, Arkansas, which at that point sounds like a very sleepy little town.
Well, the housing market was collapsing.
Right. And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, you open your doors October 2008. When does the recession hit, and what does that look like for your business? You spent all the money you have. What does that look like?
Well, I think I was a little shielded of that because my partner is a very savvy business guy. And his partner was a guy named, I'm not just trying to name drop, was a guy named Mort Meyerson, who worked for Ross Perot. I tell you that because they know what they're talking about. They're savvy investors. And he told me, he said, Carl, I told him, I said, I'm going to give you I think we gave him like a little over 2 months notice just to make sure everything was in order. And he said, Carl, this is the worst mistake you're ever making. You're going to go to some little hodunk town in Arkansas. And it didn't even dawn on me that Walmart was a significant component. I didn't even grasp that. I just saw it for what it is, as a charming neighboring place. But he said, you're making a big mistake. This is the worst economy I've ever seen. And that's what he told me. But it didn't land on me, and I didn't realize that the economy was going. See, Seattle was in a bubble. So you didn't really feel it as much as you would in certain areas of the country. Your Cincinnati's and Kansas City's, those are all close to home. Walmart seemed to have its strength naturally, but a lot of builders are out of business. As a matter of fact, that's how we were able to build that place so quickly, because so many builders didn't have any work. Wow. And they came to us, and so it was very affordable. I mean, you're talking $18, $20 an hour general contractors.
Wow.
That was beautiful. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. But, but yeah, I mean, we had everything on the line. And, so matter of fact, people would come in while we were building it out, looking around, and they would say, what are you doing here? And so we're doing a restaurant. Are you going to have a bar? And we thought, well, it's a dry county. I don't know if you guys like bars here. No, you need to have a bar. And then I would get the opposite. I would get some staunch church type cats coming in. You can't have we don't want none of that alcohol here and any of that stuff, right? So I thought to my wife, and I said, well, hey, maybe we don't do a bar. Less headache for us. And if this is what the public wants. But after about the 700th person to come in and ask us for a bar, we thought, we better do a bar. So it was a dry county, and we had to have approval from the mayor, the Bentonville police chief, the county prosecutor, and the county sheriff all had to sign off for us to have a dry county liquor license.
Wow.
And every single one of them, as much as some of them didn't want it, let us have it.
Wow. So 2008, you open. Economy is a little shaky, but sounds like it's fairly insulated here. When do you feel like the business kind of starts to pick up? You start to feel some momentum. Maybe the town starts growing a little bit. When in your head for you is that time frame?
I think the first 2 years, if you look on my income statement, it was zero income. I don't even know how we did it, but and then of course we had negative amounts on our tax returns. But I would say that 2010ish, as Crystal Bridges was starting to catch some momentum, I didn't really put any stock. Somebody told me, "Oh, you must came here for Crystal Bridges." I said, "Well, I was 2 blocks away from the Seattle Art Museum." Yeah. I think maybe 1% of those guys were my guests that would come in, not even 1/10 of 1%. So I didn't think much of the art museum, but it turned out to be a pretty good deal. So after 2011, I think it really started to go, because then we had a lot of visitors coming to Crystal Bridges. We had parking in those days. You could park anywhere on the square, but we can probably address that other issue later. But but then I would say 2011, 2012, 2013 became heydays for us. It was good. It allowed us to do Tavola.
Yeah, I was gonna say you opened up Tavola in 11, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And then what was the inspiration for that, and what cued you to?
Well, we always wanted. I was going to do an Italian restaurant in Seattle, and so, but all the deals fell through. We get really close, and deal would fall apart. And so I guess we're not doing an Italian restaurant. My partner was trying, but we just couldn't get the right deal. And then one day we had a guy who would come. He's a local businessman here. Matter of fact, he used to own this restaurant right here. I won't mention his name right now, but good guy, good man. And he would come into our restaurant and probably eat 5 to 6 times, maybe 5 times a week at lunch, and maybe 3 times for dinner. So that's 8 times a week he'd be in our restaurant.
Oh my gosh.
And I told my wife, I said, either he's like a government agent or he's spying us out, or he just really likes our food. I don't think he could. I mean, I'm not trying to discredit us. I think we got great food, but come on, 8 times a week. So finally he calls us over. We got to know him a little bit, and he calls my wife and I over. We sit down with him, and he says, "Hey, I have this property behind me, and I want to build a building there, but I'd like to have a restaurant there. And I wonder if you would be interested." And he gave us a really good deal to do it. And that's where Tavola came in at. And so we've been there since 2011. So,
And what same setup, downstairs, upstairs, the rooms upstairs, was that from inception?
It was mainly the first floor. Okay. With a little, if you recall, when you go up the stairs, there's a room to the right. It was that one little room that we could have for private. The other one, he leased out to like a software company or something like that. And then that came up, and then we took a risk. We thought, well, we got to have private dining. That was the best move. One of the best moves we made besides Table Mesa is to acquire that room. And so now we got the whole building, and that's been matter of fact, Tavola, and it took 2 years. It was like, in a negative for 2 years. After the 3rd year, it started making traction. And Tavola has been probably outperforming Table Mesa as far as our two bookends on the square. So
It's awesome. And so you kind of take your profits from Table Mesa and you roll it into
Exactly.
Tavola. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to get that picture for people who are like, if you're in the restaurant world and your goal is to grow, how are you doing that? And it sounds like you did it fairly responsibly. And I know the economy is different now and things are different, but just your approach to that, I think is important for people to understand.
That's all we knew to do. You hear about certain investment strategies, but that was the stay out of debt is our number one strategy. And so to your point, that's exactly what we did.
Cool. So talk a little bit more about Tavola and like kind of open that. When did that start to really feel like it's picking up? It feels like between Table Mesa and Tavola, there was a good stretch before the next concept came, which I think was Mirabella's. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So kind of talk about that stretch, between 2008 to kind of 2018. That's 10 years, and how those businesses are doing.
There's a couple of stumbles on the way to Mirabella's. Tavola, is who doesn't like good Italian food and a good wine list? I mean, it's just a great marriage, with pastas and pizzas and things like that. But I got a little cocky, truth be told, is that we have people would call us up and in shopping centers. We have people from Dallas and all over. And a local doctor contacted us to do something in Joplin, Missouri. And this was right after their tornado. I want to say, wasn't it a tornado 2011 or 2012, something like that?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
High school, yeah.
So I thought, this doctor calls me and says, I got this great warehouse and my practice is above it. It's on Main Street in Joplin. And I sure would like to have you do a restaurant out there. My wife and I talked to her. I said, wow, we could just grow into a big chain, and took the wrong business approach, and when I say the wrong business approach, I mean, you get a little arrogant, and you think that that's going to work well. You'll no problem. Matter of fact, after the tornado, they're going to welcome us. They're going to need a really good restaurant up there. And we get up there and, phenomenal building, but, wrong market for us, wrong market. And we tried, but the deal I made is that I'll take the kitchen equipment and I won't give you a personal guarantee because thank goodness I had enough sense to do that. If I would have signed my life away on it, I'd still be paying for it to this day. But I said, I'm not going to take that risk, but I will go up there. I shouldn't even took the risk regardless if he was going to give it to me for free. It was a bad decision. Did it in Fayetteville too, at the, what is that? Legacy building.
Yeah.
I did that too. Okay, screaming deal. Wasn't going to guarantee it. Just take the kitchen equipment. Now, Fayetteville though was more interesting because you thought you made a brilliant decision from September to May, right? I mean, it was rocking and rolling. After May, you could shoot a cannon off in that place and not hit anybody. I mean, it was just devastating.
What year was that?
I want to say it's 2013.
Okay.
So we had some wounds that we had to go home, me, and bandage up before we got into 2017 with Mirabella's Table. And even Mirabella's Table, and here's the thing you got to be careful about when people tell you, this is a great location, you'll kill it. Be careful of those words, because more likely you probably won't, Now, how do you know? How do you know that it's going to be the perfect location? You don't. Matter of fact, I know people that, and I won't mention the big corporation's name, but they would bring one of those, I don't know if he's some sort of a Buddhist priest or something, and would pray over the real estate to make sure that was the right deal. And this is a big, huge publicly held company now. I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think they can do that, but that's how weird it can be looking for a location. So now I'm just going to be very transparent. We pray about these locations. And if that's the right place we're going to be, then that's what we do. I mean, you can't beat that. See, we don't know what the future is. And if you had a GPS look at this, but not just miles high in the sky, you got to know what's going to happen 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
And we don't know that, So that's kind of, but you never know about the location, regardless of how many commercial real estate guys, because Mirabella's Table struggled for about 2.5 years.
Well, and so before we kind of really go into that,
Yes.
talk that more on that 7-year period, 2011 to 2018. What would you tell someone who's taken some L's, taken some losses, or what feels like, hey, this one hurt. You decided to take another risk, kind of going on.
Yeah.
What would you tell that person who's maybe in that season right there, that you went through in that time?
Great question. Well, I just want to tell myself, don't discount. Don't cheapen what you do. Don't start cutting costs and get so wrapped up into cutting till you cut yourself out of business. Focus on the top line. The bottom line is what it's going to be. Focus on one guest, one table at a time. Go back to basic fundamentals. I like to call it Vince Lombardi football. You may remember some of the story of Vince Lombardi. He took over the Green Bay Packers, and the first thing he did, he took out a football. He says, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And it's like that. You got to go, Carl, these are guests. These are people. They work hard for their money, value their time. Let them have a great experience. Go out of your way. Figure out how to be a servant again. Be a servant. It's power in serving, power in humility. There's no power in people serving you. I think we all feel a little weird when people give us all the gifts sometimes, like, oh, yeah. And then don't we feel a little better when we give the gifts out? It's just a natural thing. And that's just how it is. You just have to give your way out of it, And, but I mean, given your time, given your everything you have to put into it. Restaurants require a lot of time. And people will tell you, I'll tell people, I always want to know what you do for a living. What do you do for a living? You say in the restaurant, first thing they always say, that's hard work. Oh, I don't know how you do that. I think anybody who's going to have success works hard, right? Puts in the hours. I remember my daughter told me, Dad, I need to spend more time with my kids. So I'm going to be a mortgage banker now instead of, she was in some sort of other part of real estate. But she'd take her lap. Now the office opened at 9 and the office closed at 5. But the work didn't stop. So she soon realized if she's going to make that type of income that what she was used to, she had to work till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
To get deals done because some people were in other nations, their time zones are different. And so lawyers, a friend of ours is a OBGYN. I don't know how the guy sleeps. Every time I see him, he's got really dark circles, but he makes a good living. But, I had a preacher one time tell me, he says, "Hey, can you tell some of those people that are working for you that they need to go to church on Sunday? You can't work them on Sunday like that?" And I said, "Well, who's going to serve all your folks when you get out of church, when you go to brunch?" He didn't think about that one, did he? So, we all have family responsibilities, but we can still be with our families and put in the quality time. We can put down the phone. We don't have to watch the TV. We can read to our kids. We can spend that quality time. And after a while, they say, Dad, give me some space. Yeah, I'm good.
So go a little deeper on those wounds. So for people who are unfamiliar, you try to spot in Joplin. You try to spot in Fayetteville.
I'll give you one more.
Yeah.
Since we're letting it all out here in Conway. So we did 3.
Okay.
All out of the wrong motive. All to grow and be a big chain.
And were those copy pastes of current restaurants that you had
Table
open?
Mesa.
Okay.
We thought Table Mesa was the deal. Come to realize that Table Mesa is only, at this point in time in our life, it's only meant to be on the square. It's not supposed to go to Dallas. It's not supposed to go to Little Rock. Definitely not supposed to go to those other places I told you about. So what do you, I'm sorry, your question is, what do you do during this interim?
Yeah. What do those look like? You've got some profit now rolling. You're putting those in these other ventures.
Okay.
They're not working out. So just kind of talk to someone who's going through that or maybe could go through that, just
get out. Go to your landlord or whoever and say, hey, I made a mistake. This is not working. Work out something for them. Listen, in Conway, I had to pay 6 months of rent because, but don't get sideways with them. Keep that, because you never know. They're going to need you and you're going to need them one day, So try to mitigate it along with them. I tried 3 or 4 help them to find different tenants, and I did that in Joplin and I did that in Conway, but Fayetteville's a little different. They wanted me out because they found some guy from, what's the University of Mississippi? Is that Oxford or something?
Oxford, yeah.
So he comes over, he wants to do a same type of restaurant that he had in Oxford. And he's in Fayetteville, so kind of the same type of, and so they gave me money to get out. Say, please get out because I can get more rent out of this guy. So that was cool. That worked out good. The other 2, I had to humble myself and say, hey, I screwed up. And that's the best way to do is just don't go and get your lawyer. That's the worst thing you can do. Just go there man to man or man to woman or whatever and just say, hey, this is my situation. If they have any type of integrity, they'll work with you. They'll help you through that process because they don't want, put yourself in their shoes. Now they got an empty building and you were there. So, but you got to let them say, hey, this is just, man, I'm getting beat up here financially. I can't continue to go this. What can we do to work this out? And I think in most cases, if you're in a big shopping center, you're at Pinnacle or whatever it is, Promenade, I don't know how that would go. Typically, I personally stay out of those places, unless they're just willing to give me a phenomenal deal. It'd be dumb not to take it. But typically, I work with smaller people and that I can have a relationship with. And I try to be real and say, like, we could have a downturn on the economy. What are we going to do? Get all the gory, ugly stuff out when you're negotiating your lease, right? I mean, we like to think we're in a perfect, everything's sunny and rosy, and then all of a sudden we get a 9/11 or you get a 2008 housing market or who knows, COVID? Yeah. Who would have thought that? I don't even know how we got out of COVID. And I'm jumping ahead probably, but we lived on 10% of our income and paid the same bills. Labor was a little less, but
yeah. So it's crazy. So talk about, in those moments, how soon did it take you to figure out this isn't working? How soon did you know?
It didn't take long. I think it took about 6 months.
Okay.
It's like when you buy something, if you don't trust your inner self, because I knew Conway was not going to be good. And I knew Joplin was not going to be good. I convinced myself it would be good. Now that's bad. If you got to convince yourself that that's the right deal, you need counseling. Go to some advisors, spiritual advisors, business advisors, somebody who's got some better common sense than you. But don't do it unless you just feel like, I'm excited about doing that. I can't wait to do that. Don't do it because we can make more money. That's why we did it.
Yeah.
That's why Joplin came. Well, we can make more money. We can become big chain. We can be a big deal. So.
That's good. So you get through that tough period. Sounds like you learn a lot from those mistakes.
Yeah, we did.
2017, you open up Mirabella's Table. Talk about what Pinnacle was like back then. Seems like you're kind of right on, the places you're opening are right on the cusp of when things are starting to accelerate there.
Yeah,
so talk about what it was like when y'all opened. You said it was a bumpy start to open.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, you see, you have to take, not being a chain, since I've learned don't be a chain, be different, do different concepts, if you will, if you want to call it that. You brand differently. So people didn't get Mirabella's Table. They thought maybe it's a woman's clothing store or who knows what, and so we had to work the fundamental part to get people back in there. And then Pinnacle, you had Chewy's crushing it across the street from us. And then restaurants started coming on and piling up. It was a big pile-on game. So then you had to fight your way through that. And it's still kind of going through that right now. A lot of restaurants coming out there. And so, but you can't worry about those guys. See, we all get anxiety when someone else comes along, they want to do something similar. I mean, Table Mesa, it annoyed me, when the other taco place opened up. It just annoyed me. And then you had a tequila Mexican joint. That annoyed me. But I forgot the reason why I was here. See, those are distractions. So, when all the other restaurants started popular around Mirabella's, we just had to focus within our four walls. And even though they didn't know what kind of concept we were or what we were about, we just had to do it the old-fashioned way. You could do social media and go, come on out and show them great pictures. And they come out there and they look at the plate and go, that's not the same picture. That's, and then they leave. Forget about that. Focus on your four walls marketing, what you do with those guests. Let the word of mouth go back to the old-fashioned way. That's the way I like to do it. I prefer it that way. Word of mouth, that's the best advertising. It'll never fail.
Someone has a good experience, they're going to tell their friend.
Unfortunately, they like to tell when it's more. There's a tendency to tell you about the negative before the positive. I guess that's human nature. But the good stuff does get out, permeates eventually, and that's how Mirabella's came to be. And now I think we're like, and this is not trying to blow a trumpet, but I think people really recognize us as a good brunch spot. And we just had to figure out. I'll tell you what the deciding factor on Mirabella's was Thanksgiving. Well, our sales were so mediocre at Mirabella's Table. How do people are going to know about us? And it dawned on me that open up for Thanksgiving, because you got a handful of restaurants in the whole state that are open for Thanksgiving. We opened for Thanksgiving, brought in a bunch of people. They didn't know what we were. And fortunately, we executed, pretty good. And now Thanksgiving, oh, wow. That's the place to go.
Wow.
Thanksgiving is a big deal at Mirabella's Table. Take-home boxes. We do more take-home boxes than we do in sales with guests coming in for Thanksgiving. So that was the catalyst that changed the whole deal. You got to find that one day. I don't care if you have to open up for Christmas, heaven forbid, but you got to do what you got to do. But find that day. Mexican restaurants like doing Cinco de Mayo. Now everybody wants to do Cinco de Mayo. You've read your Mexican restaurant. But find something that works. What are the Irish places? St. Patty's Day? What?
Yeah.
March 17th or something like that. So, those are nice to have. But if you don't have any of that, if you're not that type of concept, well, I'm not an Irish pub and I'm not a Mexican joint. And so what works for me?
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about the Mirabella's Table concept, because we talked about Table Mesa, a little bit of the Latin kind of cuisine. Then you've got Tavola, and that's, the Italians. Talk a little bit about Mirabella's Table.
Mirabella's, I was inspired. We get inspired by other people. I like to say I'm the original. No, I'm not. I borrow stuff just like everybody else does. I mean, I don't know anybody who has an original idea. Somebody does. Maybe 5,000 years ago, maybe somebody had the original, whatever restaurant concept, maybe. But Mirabella's was inspired by Italy in New York. We just happened. My wife's from South Africa. Her brother was coming to town, so we met him. He flew into New York. We met him there, and we wanted to find a place. And we stumbled into Italy. And Italy is this beautiful big market. You've probably been. Have you been? There's a big market, cool spot. I thought, man, this is nice. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to do something like that? I don't know how they make money in that place. I mean, good Lord, I don't know how they do it, but they do. And so I think if we could do a baby version of that, and so it kind of started that way. But it just kind of evolved into its own thing, So it's not like Italy at all. You're going you try to compare the two, but you can see the distinguished difference. But that's kind of inspired us to be like a market. So you walk in, you got the display with merchandise in there, and we do fresh baked stuff and cakes and pies and do that sort of thing. So we like that. I'm a sweet tooth. So I say, get some cake. I'm a sucker for a donut or a cake or something. So that's all me. I love coffee. I love bread. I can live personally in a bakery that makes fresh bread and coffee. I mean, find a booth or a little, that could be my house, if I wasn't married, that's where I'd be. But, so those are those good components of bakery, fresh baked stuff, good coffee, nice Italian food. And then anything else whimsical we can do. Now, I'll say this in case anybody has a question. They say, who's that girl you got? That's my daughter. There's a little a little pretty big picture. I'm not, you might think, well, that's a proud, arrogant dad put his picture of his daughter up there. That, I'll tell you how that happened. Since I'll throw that in there real quick, is that, the architect said, you got a mural. What you need is a beautiful girl running through the field or something like that. And I said, I don't think so. And then one of my staff members says, well, nothing better than a child. Why don't you get a child like your kid or something? I go, what? What's better? And I started thinking about it. I said, that might not be too bad. Everybody likes kids, Yeah. So we found one where my daughter's making pizza with the chef. Mm-hmm. We thought, man, that's going to work. So we stuck that up there. That worked out pretty good. And then evolved. And now we do the Morton's Salt Girl look. So that's up there. And now we're getting ready to change over to Tiffany. So you'll give you a heads up on that one. So, but that's why that's up there, whatever. So anyway.
Well, on this phone, I want to make sure everyone kind of has a perspective here.
Sure.
So it feels like after Mirabella's is like when the velocity really starts. Like it's almost like a restaurant a year after that. And we want to kind of get into that. But that's 10 years to doing this. It's like 10 years of grinding it out, making mistakes, doing things right, maybe even getting lucky with how the market's forming. We're all in Northwest Arkansas, call it lucky. Yeah. But I mean, on your end, did it feel like, okay, now we know who we are. We really know who we are. Like, let's keep all gas on the pedal, or what was the feeling then after you knew Mirabella's was working?
Well, so after Mirabella's, 2019 feeling pretty good. 2020 comes around and the bottom falls out of everything. Now I thought in my little prayer time, I said, well, I guess this is the end of the road. I've been doing this a long time. I mean, I'm already pushing 40 years in the business. So I guess this is the end of the road for me.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we come to that realization, but it wasn't. And it just seemed to be like, nope, you need to get in there and get after it and start fighting and compete with the grocery stores, because that's who your competitor is, not other restaurants. You got to get out there with the grocery stores. But what you have over the grocery stores, you have really good prepared food, and you guys know what you're doing, right? So we are blowing a trump a little bit. So we did these really nice takeout meals that saved us. We had 20% of our business then became takeout. Usually 5% is pretty significant. 20%, it's off the chart. But everybody had to do that anyway, and we got a little bit, we told you, everybody got, any business had what they call the PPP deal.
Yeah.
But you had to pay that back if you didn't have the labor. Well, we had a lot of labor. So thank goodness that we had this big payroll that we were able to get forgiven on that stuff. But it didn't pay for cost of goods or anything like that. You could use it on rent. You could use it on, I think it was utilities and your payroll. That was it. All the other stuff, couldn't use it, So you had to get creative in how you're going to make it. Whole operation changed. The whole strategy of service changed. We lost all of our seasoned employees. Every season's just about every one of them left us.
Wow.
For a variety of reasons. People were scared to death. They didn't want to bring COVID home to their elderly parents or something. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. Like, everybody was freaked out for that first month or two, right? And then it just kind of went down. Fortunately, I'm glad we're in Arkansas. I think if I were in Seattle, a matter of fact, I know if I were in Seattle, I wouldn't be talking to you at this table. So, fortunately we're here, and then things just got better, and then it just ramped up. And then and of course, during that time, I failed to mention Table on 6, because we bought that in 2019. And then
so
COVID
is that pre-COVID, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
just a year before COVID.
Okay. And is that your first time acquiring a restaurant?
That's correct. So that's my first time buying property in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Okay.
So that was our first time being a developer and improving sidewalks and buying certain trees. learning all that stuff, right? You know how that goes. So, and buying a park bench, that was, 15 times more than what you would like to spend on a park bench. But yeah, that was our first experience doing that, and annexing our land to the city too. We didn't like that, and paying for certain parts of the driveway and roads and giving that up. And yeah, but didn't like that.
Yeah.
But that's what you got to do, right? If you're going to play the game. Right?
Yeah.
So you own the building.
Yeah.
And it was the Station Cafe. That was the name of it.
Yeah. So the Cecil, interesting enough, the guy that we met in 2008 when we were opening Table Mesa, he had the Station Cafe on the square. I guess after a while, I don't know what all the details were, but he got out of business. And a guy through his name was Todd, has a company called Lamplighter. He's a developer in around our neighborhood where Table on Six is. And he said, well, hey, let's do a burger spot. And that's what they did. And I would ride my bike by and I'd see people sitting out in the patio. I said, man, that sure is a cool spot. Then he was selling his house. He had this beautiful house where Better Homes and Gardens is.
Yep.
Right on, was that D Street or 6? I think it's 6. And he had that for sale. So I entertained that, but something in me said, well, you don't buy that, buy his little house there. And I said, yeah, but it's not for sale. I thought, who am I talking to? And some people might think I need psychiatric help, but I was talking to somebody much smarter than me, make an offer on that. So I called him and left it on their voicemail or something. And I think Todd could probably speak to this better, but I think his wife mentioned you need to go talk to Carl about selling this place because they didn't want to be in the restaurant business. So he came in at Table Mesa at the bakery and we made a deal and we bought it and we bought the land next to it because we had to have a parking lot. Yeah. So it was a very significant financial undertaking to do, but it worked out, and trying to figure out how to get a restaurant in a 1,500 square foot house, same stuff, right?
Yeah.
Dealing with that. So remodel and, hundreds of $1,000s later, here we are. But it turned out to be a really good move. And now my only way to grow is up. So we could go 4 stories up if we can figure out how to do that,
Yeah. So. Well, that's our personal favorite. We love the steak salad and the steak sandwich, I think, is one of our favorites too.
Yeah, so. The Uptown BLT, I think it is. So it has tenderloin and bacon and the jam. That's my favorite too.
But the patio out there, I just think that restaurant is so unique, the neighborhood feel of it. And Cameron and I were talking about that prepping for this. Just, it seems like all of your spots are very neighborhood. They just have a certain feeling of walking, biking. They just feel homey. And I think that's a very interesting, I don't know how intentional that was or if that's just kind of part of your brand identity at this point. But I think some things just go without you trying to do it. It just evolves that way, I can't say, I could see it being a nice neighborhood factor, but I didn't look at it like, well, that's what that's going to be. It just turned out to be that way.
Yeah.
You want me to, is that disturbing you guys?
It's good.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Well, now we're sitting at Table in the Hickory Inn. Like, tell us about, so from, you kind of gave us a little snippet on COVID, tough time. And then when did, the idea for this place come into the picture? And you kind of told us before we started here, it was a long negotiation process. Yeah, it was a very long. I think we talked for about 5 years, like I'd mentioned to you, and I was on again, off, that sort of deal. I wasn't sure if it was going to be for us or not, but then a strong impression said, "Yeah, let's go for this," because the owner wanted to sell it to us, and he approached us a few different times. I think he probably was talking to a few other people. He's, he'll entertain, some whatever the best offer, obviously. And, but, we looked at it and we thought, well, North Bentonville is going to evolve. It's going to change. And things will go this way, like they're headed to Bella Vista. So, and just the property's nice in that little cabin and, and it has so much potential. And I don't think we've seen anything yet what this place can do. So we're yet to see what's going to evolve out of here. We're going to do our best and try to do a little bit of remodeling, but we're going to try to just stay true to our cuisine and try to get better at it, and by
but we love the property out here.
And if someone hasn't been here before, give us a snippet of like what is the feel of this restaurant.
This feel will remind somebody, especially if you're from probably the northern parts of the country, some of those old steakhouses in the 70s, just a lot of old world charm to it. Waitresses with name tags, dressed up with a tie and a vest. It might get noisy here, but that's kind of what that's what reminds me of this look and feel. A good steaks, chops, good fish, and warm, engaging service, and bringing it back from a period where hospitality was really essential. And that's what Table at the Hickory Inn, that old place, and a little fireplace going on, and sometimes you have staff. It's one of those places, if you've been, where you see the waiter's been there for 40 years. We're trying to get there, so we got ways to go. We got ways to go to get there, but that's what we want to be, and that's different from our other restaurants. So
it's a more elevated experience, more old school.
Yes.
Y'all are open for lunch. Dinner.
Dinner is the thing here.
Okay.
But we keep the doors open for lunch just to be inviting, to our guests, So
yeah. And my wife and I have been, and the food's amazing, and the charm of this property, like you said, there's not many like it in Northwest Arkansas. And we were talking. I was reading online, rumored to be one of Sam Walton's favorite spots to eat, and his brother Bud Walton used to come here every Friday.
Yeah, we heard that
the
too.
rumor.
We haven't seen Sam or Bud, only in spirit. Here, But I'm sure some of the family members have probably come in. We wouldn't know, But I think when you look at this property, you can't find anything like it. I mean, it's becoming a rare situation to find anything like that around here. The way the growth is going in Bentonville.
So talk a little bit as a restaurant group. You've opened 3 restaurants now, but then the next 2 are acquisitions, and this one in Table on 6th. What are your thoughts on that? If there's another person in the restaurant world listening to this, would you recommend that? Do you like building it better from the ground up? I mean, it sounds like more of the acquisitions had to come from the property specifically rather than the actual restaurant. But I don't know. Just talk a little bit about that. I find that unique.
Yeah. We could have kept this Fred's, but we didn't. So we made an acquisition, and we scrapped the name. We kept some of the memorabilia, but I was strongly led to let go of all of that and be who you are. And that's a risk that you have to take. Now, you can take over somebody's restaurant and never miss a beat. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad business decision, especially if the sales volume is strong and the profitability, and you happen to take it over. Now, that's going to cost you more, right? But if you take over something that's pretty tired and it's weathered and it's slipping, well, you can't hold on to that same concept. That would be impractical. You'd go broke,
Yeah.
So you need to make your personality change. You can still keep some of the roots, but you need to put your own identity into it. So that's what I would recommend, depending on the circumstance. I've seen people, some guys had a place for 50 years. He's tired now, and he wants to sell it. And then great. Yeah. You move along and you buy it, especially if it's beachfront property, right? And you can't lose. Out here, a different ball game. Table on 6, it was Table at the Station. We couldn't run Table at the Station. We couldn't sell. I think what is he doing? $6.95 cheeseburgers. You can't. And, I'm not knocking that. We want to sell Wagyu beef. Why? Because we think it's not only is a good quality product, but it has good marketing appeal. So, but you can't sell it for $6.95. That's what it costs. So you got to bump the price up, But one thing I'll just say this, that we believe in keeping the prices reasonable because we realize how hard everybody works for their money. To go for a $20, $25 cheeseburger just because it's some sort of Kobe beef or something is totally contrary to our values. Just not going to do it. And you won't find a $55, $60 steak at the Hickory Inn. Just not going to do it. We'll buy a great product, but we're not going to do that. Yeah. And if that makes us in some people's eyes mediocre, then we're mediocre. But we're going to give you a good value, for what it is. But I would just try to make it my own. Back to your original question, you make it my own if I could.
That's good.
Well, talk about Bella Vista. Bella Vista was next.
Yeah.
Where did the inspiration for, why kind of move even further north? How did the site come along?
Well, the owner of the property came into Hickory Inn and asked for me, and I wasn't here, and he led his card. He came in a couple of times. He's a pretty persistent guy. And I met him, really, really nice guy. And he gave us a good deal out there. It was a restaurant called Duffers. I think a lot of folks in the Bella Vista neighborhood remember Duffers. It was a little breakfast spot. And it was, but I thought the shopping center had a nice, mature feel to it. It was a wooded area, little shopping center out in the middle of nowhere. You imagine driving along. Go ahead.
In the middle of neighborhoods, like back to this, in the middle of neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You're driving along, you see this little shopping center, and you go, oh, that's interesting. But with the way those neighborhoods, what you don't see behind the scenes, that those people are buying lots up left and right, and that area is getting populated. And it's not just retirees; it's young families moving that area. So I think in the next 5-10 years, you're really going to see a shift, and we're already seeing it at Bella's Table. So it's not just one demographic; it's a multitude of different demographics coming out, and then but when the owner of the property gave us a phenomenal rent deal, and just to be out there for 10 years, and with another 10-year option, we went for it, and so now we're in position, for growth, and we've already had some good stuff, happen over there, and then with the bakery next door to it too, we opened up the little bakery I thought was needed. And so when you put both of them together, they make one really good, solid restaurant, So.
And how do you define that? How, when you say one solid restaurant, is that a revenue goal? Is it just your ability to service? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that certainly from a revenue perspective, yes, because when you combine both of them together, because they're 2,200 square feet.
Okay.
So they're small. So you put them together and you got a 4,400 square foot restaurant, which is pretty typical, And so it's doing the volume of a probably a mid to high volume restaurant in middle of those neighborhoods out there. So it shows you the potential that it has. All we have to do now is figure out how to make money on it. So and we're in that phase. There's 3 phases to this business. There's the entrepreneurial phase, like we've been talking about. You get in there and you're rocking and rolling, and you got this great idea for stuff. And then you got to go through an operational phase to where you got to have systems and checklists and great recipes and refining all of that. And then you got to have we're in now the strategic phase.
Yeah.
So we've been through entrepreneurial. I think we'll always be in a sense, somewhat in entrepreneurial land. That's where we live. But through operations and now strategy, now we're growing outside of the market and growing. And that's our strategy and we're in that strategic phase. So now we got to bring on HR person and who knows, more accountant type people, and we're kind of dealing with that sort of thing.
Yeah, talk about the structure right now. You've got like in the future of that, of the restaurant group.
Well, right now it's my wife and I still at the helm, and then we have a director of operations with a young lady with Whitney who's been working for us since 2011. I mean, what's that? 13 years, something like that. And then we have a culinary overseer who's been with me for 10 years. And then we have Verena Smith, who's our catering director. She's been with me for 10 plus years. So we have some good seasoned vets on our team. That's where we are. And so we try to do as much work as we can until we have to till we just can't do anymore, and then we have to hire somebody.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we roll, you know. So next is accountant type person to come on board, and pretty soon we outsource some accounting and a little bit of HR here and there, but eventually we have to have it in-house.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So, and our biggest goal for a strategy is to develop our own proprietary POS system. So
why?
I think it will allow us to manage our own bookkeeping and have everything into one, where you can do your accounts payable, you can do your payroll, you know, and then you receive all your financials and generate a good financial statement and help the tax man. And even, who knows if we can even do most of our tax reporting and pay our, you know, we're already paying payroll taxes to the IRS through the system, but also through sales tax, we're doing that as well. Okay. So we need it. We're looking to do an all-in-one. Right now, you got to do it with all these third parties, with all these services. Yeah. You know, it adds up.
So it's more for back end stuff. It's not really like related to the operations of the restaurant, inventory, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So we've got Bella's Table. That was 2024. And then kind of bring us up to right now, 2025.
So right now we got a bit of a growth spurt. We thought we were done growing for a little bit. You know, we hit whatever height we wanted to be, but all of a sudden, boom, we ate some Wheaties. And now we signed a deal in Johnson to do A1A Table, which we're really excited about. So it's going to be a Florida style. I'm a native Floridian of all my travels, but that's where I really, my best fond memories are growing up in a sleepy beach town, being a surfer kid. So we're going to do A1A Table. If you've probably been down A1A, there's 30A. A lot of people around this area, they all know about 30A. Yeah. Not many people know about it. We're going to try to introduce A1A to people. So coastal cuisine, lots of between red snapper and grouper and all kinds of wonderful fish, you know, from the Gulf and from that region. So that's A1A Table, which I guess in your neck of the woods, Fayetteville, right? And then we're going to be at the Walmart home office in their new beautiful campus called Table at the Center. So we're going to do a Euro bistro there called Table All Center or Table at the Center. And then we also signed something for a Tavola. We call it Tavola FLA, or legal name is Tavola San Marco in the San Marco area of Jacksonville, Florida. So that's our first venture outside of the market. And so our goal is to support Tavola in Jacksonville by trying to open another restaurant or two there where they have friends they can piggyback off of and have some. So we're looking at one in Jacksonville Beach, and then hopefully we can get into Atlantic Beach, but that's, you know, a little incestuous, if you will, over there. So it's a hard nut to crack. You know?
So, a lot of growth. Are those all 2026 kind of openings?
Yeah. Okay. We were hoping the winter 2025 doesn't look like. So it'll be, so you got two restaurants, you got all three opening in 2026. So we're going to be busy in 2026. And then we have one last concept called Table Mesa X, which is a fast food concept that we're developing with drive-through. So a lot of interesting popular items with Table Mesa on there, and we might throw a few other concepts in there, but keep the menu pretty simple, but good, you know, favorites.
Yeah.
There. So
do you have a location for that, or that's just Northwest Arkansas in general?
It'll be Northwest Arkansas when we kick that off.
Cool.
You know,
cool.
So,
and that's kind of where the puck's headed. Is that your thought there? I mean, a lot of drive-through, a lot of takeout. So.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting segment to get into, and I think that's where we'll have a limited dine-in, and we're also going to do it where you just walk up, do it. You know, that Chick-fil-A that you like over in Fayetteville, you have to walk up to and drive through. I kind of like that gig, but we'll do a little bit of dine-in too. You know,
So, I mean, I'm just trying to rack my brain around this. All your concepts are different and all different cuisine styles.
Yes.
a lot of different locations, different. I mean, you have some neighborhood spots. You've got some big This is a big restaurant. I don't know the square footage here,
but 8,000.
8,000, so double the kind of normal size that you cited.
Yeah.
You just have a lot of complexities in your business, and you still found a way to be really successful. How have you navigated through those complexities, whether it's your team, things you've learned, whether it's been your failures you talked about? Just talk about what it's very complex business. Restaurant in general is a complex business. Then to add on top of it, 8 different concepts, 10 really different concepts.
Yeah.
Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, I guess I don't look at it as complex. When you're deep in the weeds of it, you don't look like you're in the weeds. Or if you're in the forest, you don't think you're in the forest, what that is, alarm.
Yeah.
But we look at it as a challenge in a lot of ways, but I think we look at it as more passion and it's more fun. And I think when you take that perspective of it, it doesn't come across as a hard, difficult thing. You just don't look at it like that. And I think that's kind of our thing, is different stuff. I'm not a good chain guy. I told you, we fell right on our face trying to be a chain. Our thing is what's happened. And, the interesting thing is that the Table is the brand now.
Yeah.
It's not Table Mesa. It's not Tavola. No, you don't recognize, a little bit, but what you do recognize now is the Table. And then we can, and so that's more fun when you can diversify. It's more fun when you can get out there and do that instead of doing the same old thing. And my brain doesn't work that way. My attention span is very, I don't know, they say is a gnat. I don't know, maybe, but it's just, we're all wired. Everybody has a gift. I don't know it all. I have managers that all have unique, different gifts. They don't know it all, but collectively we can make a pretty good team, and it can't certainly rest on me because, if they think I'm the smartest guy in the room, we're in trouble, right? So, but I think I just draw from experience and things that have come across my way. And fortunately, thank goodness, I paid attention to people who, when they came across my path, I happen to be paying attention then. Most of the time I'm not, right? So, but when good chefs and good culinary artisans would come across my path, it was almost like a divine thing that it was meant to be. And I didn't go to culinary school, but I sure did love matter of fact, I hated being in the kitchen for a number of years, but I realized that if I'm going to be successful in this business, I better learn the culinary part of it. And when I got back there, I actually had a knack for it, and I enjoyed it. And so then I almost got myself killed. I'll share this with you real quick. I was 15 years old. I was working at the Holiday Inn. I showed you that picture of the Holiday Inn. And we did really nice gourmet seafood, believe it or not, at the Holiday Inn. And the chef had me harvest some lobster tails. And he gave me a piece of lobster and he wanted me to saute it. Well, I took the lobster and I battered and I fried it and I ate it. He about killed me. So, you never do this to lobster, you bullet head. That's what he called me. Well, now what are we doing? We're frying lobster, we're frying shrimp, we're frying everything. And I think I was ahead of the time frying lobster, because sure was tasty to me. I didn't have to poach it in butter and do all that stuff, So I was always a little wacky when it came to stuff, and when I worked for Houlihan's, we did wacky stuff. We had food. We took a potato skin and made an entree out of it, just, and then we were all over the board. So I was perfect in my element. When I went to work for Houston's restaurant, I learned about precision and expertise and strategy, but, just execution. But there is no creativity there. And it was their way or the highway in a nice sort of way. But I learned that was valuable to me, as an operator. So whether it's complexities or not, it's joy, it's fun, it's allowing you to be creative and allowing you to plan. And what better way, to earn a buck than to do unique things like this.
Absolutely. Well, before we get a little bit more into where we're headed, and maybe we can talk about a couple of those concepts or more just kind of your growth in general. You kind of give just an overview of where y'all are at right now, whether it's just a scale perspective. So it could be employees or revenue or, whatever that looks like, how you're evaluating the business, the scale of it, so people can understand that.
Well, I think we're now 400 plus employees.
Wow.
Well, at least that's what the accounting people tell me. So it's a lot of people to keep track of, but we don't, we just try to, as far as training and development, give them a plan. We tell them that you have basically 4 responsibilities. That's engage with our guests, go out of your way for them, and to merchandise yourself, your attitude, your thoughts. Be the same person. We try to get them to be the same person outside as inside. As we know, that doesn't always work, right? And then teamwork is a huge deal. Teamwork should be an unsolicited approach. You learn that in team sports. If you're a basketball player or something, you realize that's just not all about you. It's a team effort. That's the way it is in our world. And the technical part of the job, being technically proficient at what you do, knowing, having wisdom. Wisdom is basically taking understanding and putting it into action. And that's what we try to get people, to do. Volume-wise, 10 restaurants, we probably see a few more after that. Who knows? I can't say, we're going to do 20 and we're going to stop. We may do 11 and that'll be the end of it, or we may do 100. That may be the end of it. I don't know. So whether we're a $20 million company, roughly, or we become a $200 million company or $1 billion company, I don't know. But if I get caught up into that, I got problems. I can't do that. That's what got me into trouble before.
It's good.
Was trying to get the top number and trying to be something. Hey, life's short. You get to learn that. A little wisdom put into action. You don't need to do all that. You don't need to be the big rock star. Like, I'm the new shiny restaurant. Come see me. We're the big deal. That's a short period of time. That's only a season. Someone told me a long time ago, when you're a restaurateur or your own business, you have a print shop or something, you have 5 seconds of fame. You walk out the door. If you put your name on the place, you see, Cameron's place or something, then you go back in, or Nick's or whatever, right? Nick's is a great name for a pizza joint, by the way. I was going to tell you that. But, you come in and that's the end of it. Now what are you? You're a fabric of society. You're an employer. That's it. Game over. You're an employer and you're part of society. You're part of the neighborhood, and you got to operate like that, and then one step at a time. And God willing, if there's a great place and you want to go and you want to be there, then do a little bit of analytical thinking, do a little bit of homework, do some due diligence, but you can do all that and still fail. But go where you feel that you're led to be and trust that gut. And then it wouldn't help to have some finances, and you can do your competitive. You can look around you and say, this restaurant does 5 million. This restaurant does 10 million. Well, then I got a good chance to do 4 million. I'm going to go there and never make it, because 2 things will kill you in a restaurant business: rent and labor. And if you don't have those things under control, if one of those is out of balance, you're done. So you can't go on like, I got to be in this great shopping center. There's a marina and my rent is $30,000 a month, but I think I can do 8 or 9 or 10 million. Well, what happens if you don't do 8 or 9, 10 million? You're still going to pay $30,000 a month. Yeah, that's a scary number, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I've seen people do that, and it takes. They say high tide raises all boats. Well, yeah, you have a lot of restaurants and you have a few dogs, and those other ones got to raise that up.
Yeah.
That's what's happening in Bella Vista. I think those guys are lagging them behind only because they haven't matured yet. The fruit's still growing on the vine out there, and pretty soon they'll stand on their own 2 feet.
That's good. So why keep going? Not even keep going. Why accelerate? You have probably so many options, whether it's selling the business.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why keep going?
Well, that's a great question, because most of my friends are retiring, and I don't have the faintest desire to retire. I don't know. I think my wife would just go crazy if I retired. And I don't play golf. I quite frankly suck at golf. Sometimes I think I'm good, and then the next day it's like I never picked up a club. So that's not my sport. And I'm not a runner anymore because I had my knee scoped, so that's over with. And I like the surfing part, but I don't live near a beach. So what am I going to do? I like doing what I'm doing, And I'm in the fun part of the season of my life. I talk to people like Cameron and yourself and real estate guys, and that's fun. And sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not. But you never know. Life. You never know what happens. Another year down the road, something could completely change. We just don't know. But that's the beautiful part. And the thing about my business, I get to be in the food part of it. And my palate hasn't died off. I still can taste things. And I think I've been given too strong of a nose. So I can smell stuff that people can't smell. So I know that's weird, but that's just it for me. But I think if I'm 97 years old and I can still be part of this company, that would be awesome, and get to do a little bit with my family, take them on vacation, a couple of weeks a year or something. But
so why Florida? I mean, that, from the outside looking in, people are like, okay, Carl's got 8 or 9 restaurants in Northwest Arkansas, and he's planning to open 2 in Florida. Like, is he crazy? Why Florida?
Exactly. That's why. Well, here's the thing: only go to markets. This is just Carl's advice. You don't have to listen, but sorry, but the phones are distracting. Get rid of that thing. Why Florida? I grew up in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, so I have a connection there. I know the market, and it's a dream for me to go there and do that. It's a dream, and I feel so good about going there, and I'm excited to go there. And I wouldn't be excited. I lived in Houston for 20 years, but I'm not excited to go to Houston.
Yeah.
And I know the market really good. And that's a phenomenal restaurant town. It'd be tough not to make it in Houston. It really would. Or Dallas. But just there's no desire. Tulsa, I looked, that seems pretty close. It's a couple hours away. That wouldn't be a bad strategy. But that market speaks to me. And so that area speaks to me. So I envision from that part of Jacksonville we're at, even to as far as St. Augustine, being somewhere in that area. That'd be fun. Because I think if you're going to grow your business, go to places that you like going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Go. If you like going to Florida, if you want to open one in the Bahamas, more power to you. If that's what you want to do. But go to some place that you really enjoy traveling and being there, and that you could spend significant amount of time to.
So that's part of it, but you have a strategy. I mean, the market, but to also talk about and I know you may not, I guess you have some experience, right? Joplin, Conway, but what does it look like to manage and own a restaurant in a completely different city? That's a flight, right? Jacksonville's a flight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
talk about that.
You can't. So you got to put people down there you trust. So we're putting a team down there that work for us. I've got the general manager's been working for me for pushing 10 years.
Wow.
So we got somebody we can trust down there that gets our value. So she can pioneer it and get it and colonize it, if you will. It's like going to Mars, right? So she can go down there and colonize it. And the chef that we're putting down there has worked for us for over 10 years. So we got that going for us. And then we've taken our time, we've got 200 applicants for management position. And so we found one out of the 200 that we like.
Wow.
So we're going in, with that mindset that people that we can trust. Because I told him, I said, Carl can't jump on a flight and come down there and fix you up. You got to fix it. So, and I think she gets it. Matter of fact, I know she gets that. And then we're developing more multi-unit. So we have 2 multi-unit people. I have a director of operations, and I'm also developed a multi-unit manager who's going to go down there. So at some point, you got to go, I'm not omnipresent, right? Yeah. I can't be in all these places. You got to have people. If you're going to grow, that's how you have to grow with people. You just can't go, well, I like Miami, I'm going down there. Well, you don't have any infrastructure. It ain't going to work out for you, right?
And so talk about, you wrote a book. Tell us about that. Where can people get the book? What's the book called?
So,
what's the book about?
Well, after, lots of people ask me that, how did you get here? How'd you get here? How'd you get here? I don't know, after 6,000 people ask you, how you get here? I felt like I needed to tell a story about that, you know. And it's a faith-based self-help business book, all compressed into one. I tried to throw all of that in there. For those who want to start a restaurant, there's stuff in there that you can get out of it. For those who, like me, who were never religious or spiritual at all until one day I saw the light, you know, in Seattle, that I struggled so hard. That was another struggle where I wanted to be an entrepreneur so bad that somebody actually gave me a piece of a restaurant and I could go in there and make it. And this was in 1999. But only that the guy who gave me some of the restaurant had a lien on the place and owed the tax man and owed vendors and had multiple partners I didn't know about. And it was a hot mess I got myself in. Very stupid, just to be able to have a claim of fame and put myself in restaurant news or something. I don't know. But you know, the book tells that story of you know, going through life, even as a kid. You know, my mother struggled. I don't mind, saying that. I didn't know my dad. That's okay. You know, sometimes, you know, you hear people, I didn't know my dad. My dad was abusive. I'm usually not that, feeling for them, you know, because I didn't know my father. I always tell people I'm kind of this mindset that, well, you're living now, get over it. And I know that doesn't sound warm and fuzzy to some people, but that's just my nature, if you will. That, hey, you're living now. You can't dwell in the past. You know, if somebody was abusive to you and all that, I understand. That's hard. You know, you need to get fixed up. But right now, look at where you are now, and you got a whole life ahead of you. So don't spend too much time back there. You know, look ahead. So in the book, I put stuff. So it's the story to Table Mesa. You know, I think it's the tagline's from the crumbs underneath the table, literally. You know, those crumbs underneath the table to actually a seat at the table. And I'll say this: that the name Table, I didn't realize it, but the name was given to us, I believe, by the Lord, inspirationally, because. I thought it was this. I thought, well, table is synonymous to dining in restaurants, and people are going to get that, right? The table, that makes sense. Actually, it wasn't that at all. I just learned a year ago what her name was all about, strangely as enough. So I was reading in the book of Psalms 23, where it says that he'll present a table in the midst of your enemies. I don't know if you remember that. As a kid, you always read Psalms 23, right? And, Lord's my shepherd type deal. And the table, it dawned on me, is flat. Like if we came here, like you guys came here, there's nothing on this table. It's flat. What we've done now, what do? We added drinks and stuff. We could have food. And then now you have people and you're having conversation. So the table's built on. I had to get flat like a table for I could be built on, where things could be built on me. And so that was it. I had that aha moment a year ago. I've had this restaurant for 18 years. Talking about like dull, not getting it. And I realized it's just that aha moment. And I must have read that Psalms 23 15,000 times in my little tenure. Maybe not. I might be exaggerating. But, you know, and so that book will tell the story how we got here, and the struggles that you can go through. And you just got to hang tough. You know, which is a cliche, but you have to be, I think the power is humility and wait. It's a waiting game. So, you know, a lot of times we send a prayer up. We need an answer for a prayer about something. We need it done now, right? Come on, we need it now. But then you don't get it now. And you say, well, that don't work for me. No, there's things got to get orchestrated, you know? And we must have prayed for to get on our own when we were in Seattle for years. You know, we even prayed to get into Seattle. That took a lot of work. You just got to wait it out and be cool, and be humble, and just be a genuine, loving, good person. That's tough to do, but that's what we have to do. That's the journey on the whole planet. We can figure that out. And it's not to figure out. It's pretty easy. Pretty easy. But you don't have to be the big dog, you know. And I still get troubled with, I'm a competitor, very strong competitor. So when I see other restaurants, what's the first thing I want to do? Go in there and, let's go in there and knock some teeth out, you know. That's not how it's done. You know, they're going to go through the same travels we are. You know, we don't know what it's like to rest their head on the pillow at night, what they're dealing with. It may look really nice on the outside, and you may think when these new restaurants come and go, oh, we're in trouble. We got to give up slices of the pie. Nah, don't worry about that. You know, just do what you're doing, and you'll be fine. You know.
Well, I want to kind of get us to wrapping up here. I know y'all about to open up for lunch, but 2 last questions we want to ask every guest before. So number 1, why build a business in Northwest Arkansas? What would you tell somebody who's thinking about starting a business here, whether they're here already or coming to the area? Why build a business here?
Well, Northwest Arkansas has a lot of offerings, more than probably other markets. So you've got 3 or 4, I guess, what would you call it, on the Forbes list or something? I mean, you've got major players like Walmart. Aren't they the biggest retailer? That's not bad. There's several thousand employees. You got Tyson. You got J.B. Hunt. You have a lot of satellite. You have a lot of vendors. Now you're getting medical. You got a world-class museum. What am I missing? You got a world-class university. You're getting hotels. You're getting tourism. The bikes are becoming a big deal. So if you're a mountain bike person, I mean, you have all these boxes you can check off. Why not? Why not? You know, it's just trying to get a deal done.
Yeah.
Trying to get a deal done, the right deal. And so it's tough if you're a tenant. If you're a tenant trying to negotiate something, because the developer's costs are high. So everybody's costs are high. So even though we're in a wonderful market like Northwest Arkansas, which is a good, fruitful place to try to make something happen, you know, but you got to have, you know, if I had to do what I'm doing now 18 years ago, I don't know if I could do it, even with the money that I saved based on inflation. I still don't know if I could do it. I just hit the right time at the right place. And sometimes to invest, sometimes the economy needs to be a little, you know, and then you stick your neck out there. But Northwest Arkansas, probably one of the best places, and I think it's a safe refuge for us to be here. So,
well, and last question: how do you define success?
Well, simple as that may seem, and I like to tell you how professional and how smart I am, but that would be a lie. I would say that success is measured on your willingness to serve. I can't help but I can't emphasize that enough. Your humility and you're willing to serve others. It's a phenomenon. It's like gravity. You can't see it. You know, stuff comes down. It holds everything in the universe in place. And then I think the law of reciprocity, you know, if someone smiles at you, you smile back. Somebody flips you off on the highway, you might be tempted to do the same. Unwise, right? But I think that law of reciprocity helps breed success, you know. And I think I'd be meditating and staying in prayer, and because at the end of it, you know, you can determine your own step, but the Lord's going to determine. I know some people may not like spiritual stuff, but hey, it's out there. You can't escape it. It's there. I'm one to tell you. I ran from it. Doesn't work. But if you accept that the things are out there that you don't see, again, like gravity or reciprocity, things like that, will bring success based on the type of person and how you're treating your fellow man. You know, that brings success, you know, because people will like you and want to offer things, do things, nice things for you. But if you're a jerk and you want to go in there and you want to, you know, bust people up and you think you're all that, that's not a good good recipe for success. I don't believe,
It's good. Well, one of the things we do at the end of every episode is really try to capture, as we listen and learn from you today, what we think are going to be the key things that our audience learns from you. And I think the first one, you hit on it a lot throughout the whole podcast, was passion. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of passion for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think it all culminated when you said, I do this till I'm 90 if I can.
Yeah.
That is very rare in founders in general and business owners. Like, having the passion and excitement to do what you're doing. It's not for the money. It's because I like what I'm doing. Yeah. And I get to serve people, and I want to do that till I'm 90.
Yep.
And I think that was really special. Even hearing you talk about, from the outside looking, it is crazy that you're going to open a restaurant in Florida, but you're doing that because you're passionate about it. You're excited to be in that market. Yeah. And I think anyone who's a business owner thinking about starting a business, if that's not at the epicenter of what you're doing, it doesn't feel like that's a sustainable recipe. Yeah. So I think you highlighted that really well.
Thank you.
I think the next two kind of go hand in hand. So just your willingness to serve. You talked about your employees. You talked about the power in serving. You talked about giving. Those are some of the kind of key highlights from the interview. And I think if you're a business owner and that is your focus, how can I give to my employees? How can I give to the clients, my patrons who come into my restaurants? How can I serve them? Your employees, your patrons, they're all going to have a great experience if that's the focus. Yeah. And so staying really centered on that. And I think one of the really unique things about this interview was your humility, and really, we've covered failures with people that we've interviewed, but you went into depth on some of those. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for that. And sure. I think people will learn, Carl, a lot more from your failures and what you did wrong and your willingness to share those than they will from your successes. Because hopefully if one person listens to this and they can not go to Joplin or not go to Conway because of something.
By the way, those are probably good markets.
Yeah,
for others.
Yes, but not make a mistake.
Exactly.
Because they're chasing the brand, they're chasing the high growth, right? Yeah, great markets, but they're chasing the wrong thing, right? Going back to your passion piece. If it's just to build a chain and it's not to actually, I'm having fun. I like having Latin. I like having Italian. I like having fish, coming. Those are fun. If it's not centered there, it may not work out. And so thank you for sharing those and going in depth there. Carl Garrett, we really enjoyed having you today. We're, fans of what you're building and just thankful for your time. How can people learn more about you or reach out to you or, all your restaurants?
Well, just come in. And if I'm here, ask for me, and I'd love to chat with you and visit with you. So 7-8 restaurants might be tough. Depends on our timing, how we meet. But I do spend a lot of time at Table Mesa. That's our flagship. That obviously has special meaning. That's our original, business. But But anyway, that's probably about the best way to do it.
Perfect.
And
cool.
So
thanks for your time.
You bet. Thank you.